You know, whenever I watch a heist movie, something like Ocean's 11 or The Italian Job, I'm always struck by the competence. It's comforting in a way. You have the blueprint, you have the hacker who can crack like an NSA firewall in 10 seconds flat.
Right, the getaway driver who knows exactly how many seconds the traffic light stays green.
Exactly. It's hyper-competence. It's people who are at the absolute top of their game.
It is. It's a total fantasy of control. We love watching people who know exactly what they're doing.
Right. But today, for our deep dive, I want to start with a story that is the total antithesis of that.
Okay.
It's the story of a man named MacArthur Wheeler. And I don't want to just gloss over this because the details here, they really, really matter. We're going back to 1995 in Pittsburgh.
Ah, yes. The lemon juice incident. This isn't just some funny anecdote you see on the internet. This is actually a watershed moment for modern psychology.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's set the scene. It's a bright, sunny day. MacArthur Wheeler decides he's going to rob a bank. Well, actually, not one bank. He plans to hit 2 banks.
Ambitious.
Back to back. Now, normally, a bank robber spends a lot of time thinking about the disguise.
Masks, wigs, maybe even just a pair of sunglasses. Something to obscure your identity.
But Wheeler has a different plan. A very different plan.
A plan based on, let's say, his understanding of chemistry.
A unique understanding, for sure. He decides to cover his entire face in lemon juice.
Wow.
And, he slathered it on. We're talking about stinging eyes, sticky skin, the smell of citrus probably just, radiating off him like a cloud.
And we have to ask the obvious question.
Great.
Why? What was the hypothesis here? What was he thinking?
His logic was fascinatingly linear. It was a straight line from A to B.
Yeah.
He knew that lemon juice could be used as invisible ink.
Right, the old kid's trick.
Yeah, exactly. You write on a piece of paper with lemon juice, it dries clear, and then you can't see the message until you hold it up to a light bulb or, some kind of heat source.
Right. It's basic organic chemistry. The carbon compounds in the juice oxidize, and then they turn brown when they're heated. It's pretty simple.
So Wheeler takes that fact, and he makes a leap of logic that is, it's honestly breathtaking.
Yeah.
He concludes that if he puts the invisible ink on his face
will become invisible.
Invisible to cameras, specifically.
As long as he doesn't stand too close to a heater, I guess.
I guess that was the one flaw he didn't account for. Here's the thing. This is the part that really gets me. He didn't just guess. He tested it.
Oh, this is a crucial detail.
It is. He sought empirical evidence. Before the robbery, he put the juice on, and he took a Polaroid picture of himself.
Okay, a man of science.
A man of science. And for some reason, maybe he fumbled the camera, maybe the film was just bad, who knows? The photo came out blank.
No way.
Yes, or at least he thought it showed a headless MacArthur Wheeler. So, armed with this proof, this so-called evidence, he walks into the Fidelity Savings Bank.
No mask, just juice.
Just juice. He walks up to the teller. He's holding a gun. He demands the money. And the whole time, the entire time, he is smiling directly at the surveillance cameras.
Oh, my God.
He isn't hiding. He's probably thinking, you guys are going to be so confused when you review this tape and just see a floating gun.
Yeah.
He's grinning at them.
And naturally, I'm guessing the police had the tape by the afternoon.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And it was probably the clearest footage in the history of Pittsburgh crime. Perfect lighting, direct eye contact.
Crystal clear.
They put his face on the 11:00 p.m. news, and he was in custody within an hour. An informant recognized him instantly.
Of course.
And this is the real climax of the story for me. It's not the robbery. It's the moment of his arrest. When the cops show up at his door, Wheeler is genuinely, profoundly shocked.
He's not shocked that they caught a bank robber.
No. He's shocked that they caught him. He literally stares at the officers in total confusion, and he says, and this is a direct quote, "But I wore the juice."
But I wore the juice. It is tragic and hilarious at the same time, but that specific sentence, that genuine, authentic shock, that's what launched 1,000 academic ships, really.
Exactly. Because he wasn't crazy, right? This wasn't a clinical delusion in the medical sense of the word.
No, not at all. He was sane. He was just incredibly confidently wrong. And that story, it frames the entire mission of what we're doing today. We are unpacking that old famous phrase, Ignorance is bliss.
It's something people say all the time when they don't want to hear bad news, right? Oh, don't tell me ignorance is bliss.
It is. It actually comes from a 1742 poem by Thomas Gray, Ode on a Distant Prospect of Eton College. The full line is, "Where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise."
Yeah.
But we rarely stop to actually ask if it's true. Is ignorance a valid life philosophy? Is it a shield that protects us? Or is it a dangerous blind spot that leads us to, rob banks with stinging citrus in our eyes?
And to answer that, we have a really, really eclectic stack of sources today. It's a fun one.
It is.
We're going to look at the psychological study that Wheeler's arrest actually inspired, the famous Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep. We've also got a master's thesis that really challenges that old idea that sad people see the world more accurately.
And then we're going into some heavier stuff. We have a dense philosophical paper on whether ignorance is sustainable and a really tough medical ethics essay on whether doctors should tell dying patients the truth.
And just to keep us grounded in the real world, or maybe the simulated one, we're also going to look at a very, very lively debate from a Reddit thread about the movie The Matrix.
Oh, I can't wait to get into that one.
And a great breakdown from the YouTube channel Thea K on the actual utility of not knowing things.
So we've got philosophy, movies, bank robbers, and end-of-life care. This is going to be a wild ride.
It's a lot to cover.
Let's jump right into the pop culture side of things, because I think it sets up the philosophical stakes just perfectly. Let's talk about The Matrix.
Yes, it's the ultimate allegory for this topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have the red pill, the harsh, painful, difficult truth of reality.
And then you have the blue pill.
The comforting, simulated illusion. Pure, unadulterated ignorance.
Specifically, I want to zoom in on the character Cypher. He's one of my favorite movie villains. In the movie, he's the guy who betrays humanity.
Right, he's had enough.
He's tired of the war. He's tired of the bad food. He sells out Morpheus and the crew to the agents. And his price? He wants to be reinserted into the Matrix with his memory completely wiped.
And not just as anybody.
No, he wants to be a rich, famous actor who eats delicious steak.
Ignorance is bliss. He explicitly chooses the simulation, the lie, over the struggle of the real world.
Now, usually when you watch the movie, we just write him off as the villain. He kills the good guys. He's a traitor. End of story. But we found this Reddit thread that takes a completely different angle. It's asking, was Cypher right?
Philosophically, at least. And this is the quality of life argument. And honestly, if you look at the movie objectively, life in the real world, Zion, the hovercrafts, it's terrible.
Yeah. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. They live in these cold, damp caves near the Earth's core.
The sun is blotted out.
Right. They wear these raggy, burlap sack-looking sweaters with holes in them. They're constantly running from killer squid robots. And the food, do you remember the food scene?
Oh, I do. The tasty wheat versus the snot.
Yeah. They eat this single-celled protein goop that looks like runny oatmeal. It's just sustenance. Meanwhile, inside the Matrix, what is Cypher doing?
He's at a fancy restaurant cutting into a juicy, medium-rare filet mignon.
And he knows it's fake. He says it. He knows it's just code, but his brain, his senses are telling him it's delicious.
And for him, that's what matters. There was a user in the thread, DePastino, who came up with this brilliant analogy. They called it the pissed-off pilgrim.
The pissed-off pilgrim. Okay, unpack that for me. I love it.
So imagine the pilgrims who left England. They left for a reason, right? They left because of religious persecution. They wanted truth and freedom. They wanted a better life.
Right. They were seeking something more authentic.
Exactly. They get to the New World. And what happened?
They freeze, they starve, half of them die in the first winter. It's brutal.
It's absolutely brutal. So the pissed-off pilgrim is the guy who looks around at the frozen mud and the empty food stores and says, you know what? The oppression back in London wasn't that bad.
At least there were pubs.
At least there was heating. I want to go back. Cypher is effectively that pilgrim. He's saying that the abstract value of freedom or truth isn't worth the visceral, daily misery of freezing to death and eating goop.
That is a really strong argument. If reality is nothing but suffering, why is it morally superior to a pleasant lie? Cypher tells the agent, I don't want to remember nothing. He is actively campaigning for blindness, for that blissful ignorance.
But the Reddit thread didn't just stop at the philosophy. This is Reddit, after all. They got really technical about the logistics of his deal.
Of course they did.
Because choosing ignorance is a gamble. You have to trust the person, or in this case, the machine, that is granting you that ignorance.
Right, and Cypher is making a deal with the agents.
The bad guys.
The literal bad guys.
There was a user named Heretisho Jimbo who was basically, screaming at the screen through their keyboard.
I can picture it.
They pointed out that Cypher is an absolute idiot for trusting the machines. The machines view humans as batteries. They're just copper tops. Why would they waste the massive computational resources required to reintegrate one specific human, wipe his memory, and script an entire life for him as a movie star?
It's a return on investment issue, basically.
Completely. Another user, Ectozar, really dug into the coding nightmare this would be. Think about it. If you want to insert Cypher as a famous actor, you have to patch the memories of millions, maybe billions of other people in the Matrix so they recognize him.
Right. You can't just drop a celebrity out of the sky.
No. People will be like, hey, who's that guy?
Oh, that's Cypher. He's been famous for years. Wait a minute. I've never seen him before in my life.
It would crash the immersion. It would cause glitches.
The system would reject it.
It's a massive software update for one single faulty battery. It makes no logical sense for the machines.
So the consensus on the thread was that the machines are likely lying. They're just going to get the access codes from him and then kill him? Turn him into biotrash, as the movie calls it. Or, and this is where it gets really, really trippy, there's the douchebag genie theory.
The douchebag genie theory. I love this name. Okay, explain the douchebag genie.
It's that classic trope, you know, where you make a wish and the genie grants it literally, but in a way that completely ruins it. Like, I wish for $1 million and the genie drops 1 million male deer on your house.
Right, I get it. A malicious interpretation of the wish. So how does that apply to the Matrix?
A user named Pyrolupus suggested that the machines might honor the deal, but not for the Cypher, the one sitting at the restaurant table.
What do you mean?
They could kill the real Cypher, the one making the deal, and then just grow a clone in the pods. They then insert the clone into the Matrix to be the actor. Wait, so the consciousness that made the deal, the I that wants the steak, just ceases to exist. It gets nothing.
Exactly. The I that wants the steak gets a bullet in the head, or it's pod flushed. The I that gets to eat the steak is a brand new person, a completely different consciousness that just happens to look like him.
That is horrifying.
It is.
It turns his ignorance is bliss play into a suicide mission where he gets none of the reward.
And that's the fundamental danger of the blue pill. When you choose ignorance, you are handing over your agency. You are saying, I trust the system to take care of me.
Right.
But if the system, whether it's the machines or a government or a corporation, doesn't have your best interests at heart, you aren't blissful. You're just a victim who doesn't know it yet.
You're biotrash.
You're biotrash.
Okay, so that's the fictional warning. It's a great one, but let's bring this back to our reality. We don't have agents and red pills, but we do have this psychological drive to, I guess, to deceive ourselves if it makes us feel better.
Or maybe more accurately, we have a drive to assume we're doing great, even when we're failing spectacularly.
And that brings us full circle, right back to our friend MacArthur Wheeler and the lemon juice. Because his story isn't just about a guy making a silly mistake. It triggered a landmark study by Justin Kruger and David Dunning at Cornell University in 1999 that fundamentally changed how we understand competence.
It did. It gave a name to a phenomenon we all see every day.
The famous Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, I feel like this term gets thrown around on Twitter constantly. It's basically become the academic way of saying you're too dumb to know you're dumb.
That's the pop culture version of it, yeah.
But let's actually unpack the science. What did they find in that original study?
The core finding is what they call the double disadvantage. It's a two-step problem.
Okay.
Step one, you are incompetent in a certain domain. Maybe it's grammar, maybe it's logic, maybe it's your ability to become invisible. You lack the skill to perform well.
Okay, that's just being bad at something. We've all been there. I'm bad at basketball, for example. I know I'm bad.
Right. But here is step two, and this is the crucial part. Because you lack the skill, you also lack the cognitive ability to recognize that you are bad.
Wait, hold on. Explain that. Why does being bad at basketball mean I don't know. I'm bad at basketball. I could see the ball missing the hoop every time.
That's a great point. Basketball provides immediate, unambiguous physical feedback. The ball either goes in or it doesn't.
Right.
But think about something more abstract, like grammar or logical reasoning. To know that you wrote a bad sentence, you have to know what a good sentence looks like. You need to understand sentence structure, syntax, all of that. If you don't know the rules of grammar, you literally cannot see your own mistakes. You look at your garbled sentence and you think, nailed it. Perfect.
I see. It's a metacognition issue.
Yeah.
You need the skill itself to be able to judge the skill in yourself or others.
Precisely. That's the double disadvantage. In their original study, they gave students tests on humor, logic, and grammar. The students who scored in the bottom quartile, the absolute worst performers on average, they estimated that they had scored in the 60th or 70th percentile.
Whoa. So they failed the test, but they walked out of the room thinking they got a B+.
Yes, they didn't walk out thinking, man, that was really hard, I probably bombed. They walked out thinking, I crushed that. That is the Dunning-Kruger effect in a nutshell. It's not just ignorance, it's a false sense of confidence that is fueled by that same ignorance.
But is this totally solid? I mean, 1999 was a while ago now. Has this held up, or is this one of those classic psych studies that fails replication down the line?
That is a great question, and you should be skeptical. There are definitely critics. Some researchers, I think back in 2002, argued that this might just be a statistical artifact, something called regression to the mean.
Okay, regression to the mean. Explain that to me like I'm 5 years old.
Okay. Imagine we are rolling a single six-sided die. If you roll a 1, the lowest possible score, what is most likely to happen on your next roll?
It'll probably be higher. I mean, it can't be lower.
Exactly. It has nowhere to go but up, on average. So if you are at the absolute bottom of the competence barrel, your self-estimate has nowhere to go but up. You can't estimate that you did worse than 0 on a test.
So your guess is naturally going to be an overestimation just because of the math.
Right. The critics are saying these people aren't delusional, they're just hitting the statistical floor, and any guess they make will look like overconfidence.
Okay, that makes sense.
Plus, you have the general above-average effect. It's a well-known cognitive bias. If you ask a room full of people, are you an above-average driver? Something like 80% of the hands will go up.
Which is a mathematical impossibility.
A total impossibility. But it's human nature. We all think we're the main character in the story.
I definitely think I'm an excellent driver despite, the clear evidence to the contrary on my car's bumper.
We all do. But, and this is a really big but even with those statistical caveats, the core concept of the Dunning-Kruger effect has been replicated in some really high-stakes environments. It's not just about grammar tests anymore.
Okay, so where else are we seeing this?
The Ynet source you mentioned pointed to a 2016 review about information literacy.
Okay, so that's the skill of being able to fact-check, find reliable sources, navigate Google effectively, all that stuff.
Exactly. And it turns out the people who are the worst at fact-checking
Are the ones who think they are the best at it. Let me guess.
You got it. They wildly overestimate their ability to spot fake news or misinformation.
That's genuinely terrifying. Because that means the people who are most susceptible to being manipulated by misinformation are the ones who are most confident that they can't be fooled.
It explains a lot about the modern internet landscape, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it gets even worse when we look at politics. A 2018 study showed that the people with the least amount of factual political knowledge were the most confident in their political expertise.
So the guy shouting the loudest at the Thanksgiving dinner table about, say, foreign policy
is statistically the most likely to be the one who couldn't find the country in question on a map.
And I have to assume social media just pours gasoline on this fire.
It does. The source we looked at compared data from 2008 to 2020, and the effect has intensified. We consume these little snippets of news headlines, tweets, TikToks, and it gives us the illusion of competence.
Right, you know the buzzword.
You know the buzzword, so you think you know the policy. You've seen the memes, so you think you understand the geopolitical conflict.
This all circles back to the ignorance is bliss theme. So for these people, is this bliss? They feel confident, they feel smart, they aren't plagued by self-doubt.
They might feel bliss individually. MacArthur Wheeler felt great right up until the handcuffs clicked on his wrists. But societally, it's a disaster. It leads to rigid extremism and polarization. When you don't know what you don't know, you can't be reasoned with. You reject opposing arguments not because you've analyzed them and found them lacking, but because you literally lack the cognitive framework to understand them in the first place.
It's like trying to explain calculus to someone who doesn't believe in numbers.
Exactly. It's a non-starter. So in the political sphere, ignorance is definitely not bliss. It's a recipe for chaos and a breakdown in rational discussion.
Okay, so we've established that. But let's flip the coin for a second. There's this persistent, almost romantic idea that if you are smart or if you do see the world accurately, you're going to be miserable.
The tortured genius trope. The idea that happiness requires a certain amount of delusion, a certain amount of not looking too closely.
Right. I'm too smart to be happy. I see the pain of the world too clearly. This brings us to a really interesting psychological concept called depressive realism.
This was a very popular idea, especially coming out of the late 70s. The theory is that non-depressed people, so-called happy people, walk around with rose-colored glasses on. We have an illusion of control.
Like thinking I can influence the outcome of a football game by wearing my lucky jersey.
Exactly. Or thinking you're a good driver when you've just been lucky not to get in a major accident. The theory posits that people with depression lack this optimistic buffer. They see the cold, hard truth that we have very little control over most outcomes.
Therefore, they are sadder but wiser.
That's the phrase.
It sounds intuitive. It feels truthy, you know? But we have a master's thesis here by Lindsay Babcock from Eastern Illinois University that basically takes a sledgehammer to this entire idea.
It really does. Babcock's main critique was that all the previous studies supporting the sadder but wiser hypothesis were done in labs with very artificial tasks, like press a button and see if a green light turns on.
Okay, so in a lab, depressed people were better at realizing, hey, this button doesn't actually control the light, it's random.
Correct. They were more accurate in judging their lack of control in that very specific, very simple task. But Babcock asked, does that translate to the complexity of real life? She didn't think so.
So what did she do differently?
She designed a study using real-world statistics. She got about 160 college students, ranked them by their depression and anxiety scores, and then asked them to estimate things that actually matter. Things like gun violence rates, car crash fatalities, the prevalence of mental illness.
So instead of a button and a light, she asked, how dangerous is the world really? Give me the numbers.
Exactly. And if depressive realism were true, the students with higher depression scores should have been more accurate. They should have hit the actual statistical numbers closer to the bullseye.
Did they?
No, not at all. Not even close. In fact, the estimates from everyone, depressed or not, were absolutely wild. But the depressed students weren't any wiser. They were just sadder.
Give me an example of how wild these estimates were.
Okay, brace yourself for this one. One of the questions was, how many people die by guns in the U.S. per year?
Okay.
Now, for context, the U.S. population is roughly 330 million people. The actual number of gun deaths, which includes homicides, suicides, and accidents, fluctuates, but it's usually in the ballpark of 40,000 to 45,000.
Okay, so 40,000 out of 330 million.
Mm-hmm.
What did the participants guess?
Some participants guessed 200 million.
What? Wait, 200 million.
200 million, yes.
Hold on, I'm trying to do the math here. That's almost 2/3 of the entire country dying from guns every single year.
Mm-hmm.
If that were true, in less than 2 years, the country would be empty. Everyone would be dead.
It's a mathematical and biological impossibility, but that was the number they put down.
And this wasn't just the happy-go-lucky people guessing this.
No, it was across the board, but the key finding was that the depressed participants showed no special advantage in reining in these numbers. They weren't closer to the real 40,000 figure.
So what did the study conclude?
It concluded that depression correlates with a pessimistic bias, but not a realistic one.
That is a huge and important distinction.
It's everything.
We confuse the two all the time. We think pessimism equals realism because reality is often tough and disappointing. But thinking the world is dramatically more dangerous than it actually is just as delusional as thinking it's perfectly safe.
Precisely. A depressed person might be consumed by the thought, everyone hates me and I'm going to fail at everything I do. That is just as much a cognitive distortion as the narcissist thinking, everyone loves me and I'm a god who can't fail. Neither one is an accurate reflection of reality.
So the tortured genius might just be tortured, not necessarily a genius when it comes to seeing the world clearly.
Just plain wrong. The thesis also looked at something called locus of control. The depressed participants were more likely to have an external locus of control, feeling like they had no control over their lives, that it was all fate or luck.
Right.
But that feeling of helplessness didn't make them better at understanding the world's facts. It just made them feel helpless.
Okay, so we've kind of bashed ignorance in politics. We've debunked the idea that misery equals wisdom. We're striking out on ignorance is bliss so far. But is there ever a time where ignorance is actually the right strategic choice?
Actually, yes. And this is where it gets really interesting. We have a transcript here from a YouTube channel called Thuth Unk, and they make a very compelling case for what we might call strategic ignorance.
Strategic ignorance. I like that. So it's being stupid on purpose for good reason. When do we need to do that?
Well, the most obvious and powerful example is science itself, specifically double-blind studies.
Oh, right. Of course. If I'm a researcher testing a new cancer drug, I absolutely cannot know which patients are getting the real drug and which ones are getting the sugar pill, the placebo.
Exactly. And the patients can't know either. If you, the researcher, know who has the real drug, you will break the experiment. Your bias, your deep hope that the drug works, might make you record the data differently or treat the patient with a little more optimism.
You'd be looking for positive signs.
You would. And that invalidates the results. In this case, ignorance is the only way to get to the truth. You have to be blind to see clearly.
That's a cool paradox. Ignorance is a tool for finding truth. What else?
3N decay also brings up the idea of performance. Think about something like rock climbing.
Oh man, my palms are sweating just thinking about it.
So imagine you are 50 feet up a sheer cliff face. You are hanging on by your fingertips.
Please stop. This is very stressful.
Now, in that moment, imagine you start to think about the knowledge. You calculate the exact tensile strength of your rope. You calculate the terminal velocity of your fall should your grip fail. You visualize the impact trauma on your femur. Does that knowledge help you climb?
No, it freezes me. I'd be paralyzed with fear. I'd probably fall because I was thinking about it.
Exactly. The classic advice, don't look down, is literally an instruction to be ignorant. Ignorance of the full danger allows you to focus on the immediate task, the next handhold, the next foothold.
So knowledge of the drop creates an anxiety that degrades your performance.
It does, and it's the same with stage fright, right? If you really, truly thought about the 500 people in the audience staring at you, judging every word, you'd choke. You have to sort of blur them out, ignore their existence to some degree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's what Tuin calls the sword of Damocles perception. Some knowledge is technically true, but it just ruins the vibe.
This is the hot dog theory.
This is the hot dog theory. If you are at a backyard BBQ, the sun is shining, the beer is cold, do you really want to know the detailed chemical and biological breakdown of the mechanically separated meat in that hot dog you're about to eat?
I really, really don't. Please don't tell me.
Do you want to know how many insect parts the FDA legally allows per million in your ketchup?
No! Stop it. I want to eat my lunch in peace.
Knowing the truth in that moment would offer you zero survival benefit. The hot dog is perfectly safe to eat, but it would completely destroy your subjective happiness. This is a clear case where ignorance is genuinely bliss.
But there's a line, right? There has to be. Ignoring the ingredients in a hot dog is one thing, but HEN case brought up a much, much scarier example involving a man-made virus.
Yes. This was a real controversy from a few years back. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin took the H5N1 bird flu virus.
Okay, which is scary stuff.
Very scary. H5N1 has about a 50% mortality rate in humans who get it. But its one saving grace is that it doesn't spread easily between humans.
Yet.
Well, these researchers tweaked it. They genetically engineered it so it could spread easily between mammals. They tested it on ferrets, which are a good model for human transmission.
So they built a doomsday bug. They created a virus with the lethality of bird flu and the transmissibility of the common cold.
Essentially, yes. They created a potential pandemic-level pathogen in a lab. And then, and this is the kicker, they wanted to publish the methodology. They wanted to put the full recipe in a public scientific journal.
You're kidding me. How to build a super plague. A DIY guide for your garage lab.
That's basically what it was, and the U.S. National Science Advisory Board for Biosecurity actually stepped in. They took the unprecedented step of saying, whoa, stop, do not publish this.
Because if that specific knowledge gets out into the world,
it can't be unlearned. All it takes is one bad actor, one terrorist group, or even just one careless, underfunded lab, and you could have a global catastrophe on a scale we've never seen.
So this is the case where knowledge itself is an existential threat.
It's the ultimate argument for secrecy, which is really just enforced ignorance for the general public. We are all collectively safer not knowing how to make H5N1 airborne.
This links to a concept that was mentioned in our RSIS philosophical paper, epistemophilia.
Epistemophilia. It means the love of knowledge. But the paper warns about excessive epistemophilia.
The craving to know everything, just for the sake of knowing.
Right. It can lead to paralysis by analysis, where you have so much data you can't make a decision. Or it can lead to dangerous territory like the H5N1 study. We have to recognize that our brains have limits. We filter out information constantly, not just to be lazy, but to survive.
If you are fully, consciously aware of every germ on your skin, every single tragedy happening on the news, every potential risk in your house,
you'd curl up in a ball and never move again. Terror management theory basically suggests we need a buffer of functional ignorance just to get out of bed in the morning and cross the street.
Okay, so we've established that ignorance is good for hot dogs, it's good for rock climbing, and it's essential for preventing bioterrorism. But now I want to pivot to a situation where the stakes are deeply, deeply personal and where the ignorance is bliss argument really gets put to the ultimate test. Let's talk about palliative care.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. We're moving from philosophical debates and Reddit threads to a hospital room. The source we have here is a medical ethics essay on truth-telling and end-of-life care.
And the central conflict that it describes is something called the conspiracy of silence.
It happens all the time in hospitals. A patient is diagnosed with a terminal illness. Let's say it's stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor knows it's terminal. The family knows it's terminal. But the family pulls the doctor aside in the hallway and says, "Don't tell Mom. She can't handle it. It will kill her spirit. Please, just let her be happy for the time she has left."
And it comes from a place of love, right? They want to protect her. They're trying to give her that bliss.
It's almost always benevolent in its intent, yes. But the essay compares two different ethical models for handling this. In the blue corner, you have the traditional biomedical model.
Which sounds very cold and clinical.
It is. It's very legalistic.
Yeah.
It's based on something called principalism, specifically the principle of autonomy. The patient has a legal and moral right to know their own medical status, period. If you withhold the truth, you are violating their civil rights.
Okay. And in the red corner.
You have a newer model called the ethics of care. This model is rooted in feminist philosophy, specifically the work of a theorist named Joan Tronto. And it says, hey, wait a minute. People aren't just independent, autonomous units. We are connected. We exist in relationships. It argues for something called relational autonomy.
Meaning my decisions aren't just mine, they are made in context with my family, with my community.
Right. And in some cultures or family contexts, the group might decide that protecting the patient from devastating news is the most caring thing to do. But here's the problem. The essay argues that while the ethics of care sounds nicer and more humane, it often leads to disaster in practice.
How so? I mean, if Mom doesn't know she's dying, isn't she, by definition, happier?
For a moment, maybe? But the essay cites a 1998 randomized controlled trial, which is the gold standard of medical evidence, that showed a stark and counterintuitive reality. Patients who were truthfully informed of their poor prognosis were significantly less likely to request CPR at the end of their life.
Okay, let's pause on that. Because on TV, CPR saves everyone all the time. You get shocked, you cough, you wake up, and you're fine. Why is avoiding it a good thing?
In reality, CPR on a frail terminal cancer patient is a brutal act. It breaks ribs, it involves powerful electric shocks, it is physically traumatic, and it almost never results in that person walking out of the hospital. It just prolongs the dying process in an ICU, hooked up to machines, often in pain and confusion.
So if Mom doesn't know she's terminal, she still thinks she's in a curable mindset. She thinks, hey, fix me up, do everything, shock me.
Exactly. She requests futile, aggressive interventions. She ends up spending her last days or weeks under bright fluorescent lights with tubes down her throat, unable to speak, in pain. The essay calls this a bad death.
Whereas if she knew the truth,
she might say, okay, I understand. I don't want that. I want to go home. I want pain management. I want to sit on my porch with my grandkids and feel the sun on my face. The lie steals her chance to define her own ending, to say goodbye on her own terms.
And what about the hospital staff? The essay mentioned the toll this takes on the nurses.
This part was heartbreaking. The doctor might only see the patient for 15 minutes a day during rounds, but the nurse is there for the entire 12-hour shift. If the family demands a conspiracy of silence, the nurse is the one who has to enforce it.
They're on the front lines of the lie. She can't answer the direct question, am I going to be okay?
She has to dodge it, lie, or change the subject. It creates this horrible wall between the nurse and the patient at the exact moment when connection is most needed. The source describes nurses feeling immense moral distress, guilt, and resentment. They can't offer true comfort because the entire foundation of the relationship is a deception.
So in this medical context, ignorance is bliss is a complete myth. It's actually ignorance is trauma for everyone involved.
It's ignorance is missed opportunities. It's unsaid goodbyes and painful technologized deaths. The essay strongly advocates for tools like advanced care plans or ACPs to force these conversations to happen early, to shift the focus from curing to caring and support.
This whole deep dive is really highlighting that ignorance isn't just one thing. It's a total shapeshifter. Ignorance on a rock wall. It's an essential survival tool.
Right.
Ignorance in a terminal ward. It's a barrier to peace and a good death.
And that context shifts even more dramatically when we zoom out to the global stage. We have that paper from RSIS International that breaks down how different cultures view this entire concept. Because ignorance is bliss is a very, very Western idea.
Yeah, let's go global with this.
Yeah.
Because here, in the West, we tend to treat knowledge as an individual possession. I know this, or I don't know this. It's about me.
Right. But if you look at a philosophy like the African concept of Ubuntu,
I am because we are.
exactly. In Ubuntu, your humanity, your very identity, is tied to your connection with others in your community. In this framework, ignorance isn't some private sanctuary you can retreat into. If you are ignorant of the truth, you cannot participate ethically in the community. You are a broken link in the social chain.
So ignorance is actually antisocial. It's a failure of your duty to the group.
It's an impediment to responsibility. MacArthur Wheeler thought his ignorance about lemon juice was his own private business, but his ignorance led him to point a gun at other people. His ignorance became a public threat. A philosophy like Ubuntu recognizes that immediately.
And what about the Asian perspectives in that paper? They seemed even more opposed to the idea.
Oh, absolutely. If you go to Buddhism, the idea that ignorance is bliss is just laughable. It's the core of their entire philosophy.
Why?
Because in Buddhism, ignorance, the Sanskrit word is avidya, is literally the root of all suffering. All of it.
Oh, wow. So it's the complete opposite. Ignorance isn't the escape from suffering. It's the cause of suffering.
It is the fundamental cause. Ignorance of the true nature of reality leads to attachment, to craving, to delusion, to the endless cycle of rebirth and pain, which they call dukkha. Enlightenment nirvana is literally the extinguishing of the flame of ignorance. You don't want to close your eyes. The entire goal is to wake up.
That is a profound shift in perspective. The Westerner says, close your eyes, it hurts less. The Buddhist says, open your eyes, or it will hurt forever.
A perfect way to put it. And then you have the sociological angle, which brings in a whole other layer. We need to talk about agnotology.
Agnotology. This was a new word for me. It sounds like a species of dinosaur.
It does, doesn't it? But it's the study of culturally induced ignorance. More specifically, it's the study of how ignorance is actively manufactured.
Manufactured. Like a car or a toaster, you can make ignorance.
Exactly. We tend to think of ignorance as a void, a simple lack of knowledge, like an empty space. I just haven't learned that yet. But agnotology argues that often ignorance is a product that is actively created, packaged, and sold to us.
Okay, who is selling us ignorance?
Well, the classic case study, the textbook example, is the tobacco industry in the mid-20th century.
Oh, right. Smoking helps you relax, and more doctors smoke Camel's era.
Exactly. By the 1950s, the science was becoming overwhelmingly clear that smoking caused lung cancer. The tobacco companies knew it. Their own internal memos admitted it. But they couldn't just come out and say, no, it doesn't. That would be a lie that was too easily disproven. So they adopted a much more sophisticated strategy.
What did they do?
They manufactured doubt. They didn't try to prove that smoking was safe. They just tried to create the impression that the science was unsettled. They funded their own studies that were specifically designed to be inconclusive. They flooded the media with alternative viewpoints. One of their own internal memos famously said, "Doubt is our product."
Doubt is our product. That is chilling.
It is. Their goal wasn't to win the scientific argument. Their goal was to keep the public in a state of suspended judgment, to keep them ignorant of the scientific consensus. They wanted people to think, well, the jury is still out, or scientists disagree.
And as long as the jury is out, I can keep buying cigarettes and tell myself it's not that bad.
Exactly. That is agnotology in action. It's the active production of ignorance to protect a profit margin or a political agenda.
And the source connects this to the concept of white ignorance, right? This is from the philosopher Charles Mills.
Yes. This applies that same logic of manufactured ignorance to the topic of race. Mills argues that in a racist society, ignorance among the dominant group isn't just an accident. White people don't just happen not to know about the history of redlining or the Tulsa Massacre or the systemic nature of police brutality.
It's an active not knowing, a chosen blindness.
It's a substantive practice. You have to actively work to maintain that ignorance. You have to tune out certain news channels, avoid certain books, approve certain history textbooks for your schools and not others. It's a structural ignorance designed to maintain a power structure. If I don't know about the oppression, then I don't have to feel guilty about my privilege or do anything to change the system.
So ignorance can be a weapon. It's not just a shield for the individual to feel better. It's a weapon used by the powerful to keep things the way they are.
Precisely. It brings us all the way back to Cypher in the Matrix. He isn't just not knowing what's real. He is actively betraying reality. He is collaborating with the agents to maintain the illusion for his own benefit. Whether it's a smoker ignoring the Surgeon General's warning, a voter ignoring a candidate's clear corruption, or a guy eating a digital steak. It's an active, moral choice.
Man, we have covered a massive amount of ground here. We started with a guy putting lemon juice on his face. We went through the Dunning-Kruger effect. We realized that depressed people aren't necessarily wiser. We climbed a rock wall. We sat at the deathbed of a patient, and we uncovered a massive tobacco conspiracy.
It has been quite a journey.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. Ignorance is bliss. At the end of our deep dive, is it true or false?
I think we have to come down on it depends entirely on the stakes.
Okay, break that down for me. Where does it work and where does it fail?
Ignorance works for the small stuff, the low-stakes stuff. It works for the placebo effect to help your body heal itself. It works for not thinking about the 50-foot drop when you're rock climbing. It works for enjoying a hot dog at a BBQ without thinking about the slaughterhouse.
It's a filter.
It acts as a necessary filter for our sanity to manage our cognitive load.
Right.
But it fails disastrously, catastrophically when the stakes are high. It fails for bank robbers who think they're invisible. It fails for patients who need to make informed end-of-life decisions. And it absolutely fails for citizens trying to vote in a complex democracy.
So it seems like the central paradox is that we need a little bit of ignorance to function day to day, to filter out the noise, but we need knowledge to survive, to grow, and to act ethically in the world.
That's the tightrope we all have to walk. If you look at that thunk transcript again, they leave us with this profound thought. In order for us to figure out whether we would be better or worse off knowing something, somebody's got to learn it first.
That's the ultimate catch-22, isn't it? You can't choose ignorance until you already know what you're choosing to ignore.
Exactly. You have to peek behind the curtain to decide if you want to close it. And usually, once you've peeked...
You can't unsee it. You can't unswallow the red pill.
You can't. The toothpaste is out of the tube. It's done.
And that really leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener. We've talked about cipher and patience and bank robbers all day, but let's make this about you.
Yes. Is there something that you know right now in your life that you honestly wish you could unlearn? Is there a truth about your job or a relationship or the world that is making you miserable and you wish you could go back to the blue pill days before you knew?
And conversely, are you maybe holding on to a comforting lie about your health, about your relationship, your career, because you're actively afraid of the pain that the truth might bring?
Because as we've seen today, that comfort, that so-called bliss, usually comes with a very, very high price tag. Whether that price is getting turned into biotrash by the machines or just making bad decisions that hurt yourself and the people around you.
Ignorance might be bliss, but it is rarely free.
Well said.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Check your blind spots, wash the lemon juice off your face, and we'll see you next time.